Hi, my name is Robert Chelle with Chelle Law, and I'm an attorney that assists veterinary associates with employment contract and independent contractor agreement issues. Today I'm going to talk about new grad veterinary contract tips. So if you're someone just coming out of school, or perhaps you're coming out of some extra training, what are some things you need to think about with this being your kind of first employment contract or independent contractor agreement? So first, obviously for any job, compensation is important, especially as a veterinary associate. I find many practices will, I don't know if treating them unfairly is the right way of characterizing it, but maybe taking advantage of their lack of knowledge as far as compensation. And so the first thing you need to make certain is that you have a guaranteed amount of money for 6 months to a year. The ProSal method is fairly common as a veterinary associate. There's different ways of doing it, but essentially you have a base draw based upon your production, and then there's going to be some kind of reconciliation, normally on a monthly basis. And then if there's a surplus, you'll get a percentage of that. If there's a negative balance, that will be carried forward. Anytime you join a practice, it's going to take, a year probably for your practice to reach maturity. Now, setting is obviously important. If you're going into a small animal, kind of mom and pop clinic, it will take time to build up. If you're going into an emergency hospital or urgent care or something like that, it's more of kind of like shift work, and so you're most likely not building up a patient base unless it's kind of a hybrid model of kind of primary care for an animal in addition to offering emergency or urgent care services. So make certain, because it takes time to build up, and if you're paid purely on collections or production, and you can have negative accrual, meaning if they paid out more than you brought in, that will then roll over, or at least the language could say that it could roll over, and you can kind of dig yourself into a hole. So make absolutely certain that no matter what kind of compensation formula you have long-term, that you have some kind of guaranteed amount at the beginning, either through a daily rate or just a guaranteed base salary or something like that. All right, so that's the first thing to think about. Next would be restrictive covenants. So what are some things that you can't do after the contract ends? Normally it would be a non-compete, a non-solicit, a non-interference. So you want to make certain you have a reasonable non-compete if you're in a state where they are enforceable, so that you're not completely out of luck if you have to find a new position. You want the scope of the non-compete to be limited to what you're doing. So if you're working in a small animal clinic, then you want it to say you can't work in a small animal clinic for 1 year and 10 miles. If you're working in urgent care, it should say you can't work in urgent care. That way you have some flexibility and some options after the contract ends. Maybe it's not your favorite thing to do, and maybe it's not ideal or what you want to do long term, but if the contract ends and it has a non-compete, you want to be able to continue to work in the area if that's your desire, at least. And so you want to make certain that it's not just you can't practice veterinary medicine within, for 1 year and 10 miles. It should be specific to what you're doing. That way you can do some other things if you really have to. Next would be termination. So if you get a signing bonus, relocation assistance, it will likely have some kind of repayment obligation in the contract if you leave within the first year, 2, 3 years. So you need to take into consideration, all right, how much do I have to pay back if I decide to leave within a period of time? And then what is the forgiveness? You would want some kind of, so let's say it's a 3-year term that they want you to stay, or you have to pay an amount back. You don't want it to be an all or nothing, meaning you have to stay for the 3-year period or you got to pay it all back. You would want ideally monthly forgiveness. So let's say you left in month 32 of 36. Well, you don't have to pay back the entire amount. You'd only owe, what is it, 4 30 seconds of what's left over, which is obviously is much less than the entire amount. As far as malpractice goes, not a giant concern for a veterinary associate. Nearly all of at least the non-corporate owned practices use the AVMA PLIT, which is an occurrence-based policy, so you don't need to worry about tail insurance. And then the last thing is just mentorship promises, having some kind of reliable person to learn from. I think new grads sometimes focus on just the comp, and they don't think about being in an area or a practice that can provide them with new skills or skills that can then benefit them in the future. So yes, compensation is important, but it shouldn't be the number one priority in your first job. Your first job should be a place where you're going to feel comfortable, where you're not going to get completely jaded from the industry immediately, and where you have the opportunity to learn from some other veterinarians that have been out a while, and kind of set you up for success in the future. All right, that's a little bit about some new grad veterinary contract tips. If you have any questions about your employment contract or independent contractor agreement, feel free to contact my law firm at the information listed below in the description. And I appreciate you watching the video. All right, thanks. Take care.